So the trade deadline is on February 8th, so it's time to get into these conversations about where exactly some of these players are going to go. This year, there's not too many players that are like on the move, at least big names that are going to be on the move. Some of them have already been traded off. Toronto's already fell off and given off some of their young players or talent in Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby. We've already had a couple of answers with some other franchises like Chicago. They're not necessarily certain on what they're going to do. And then we also have to answer the big question. Do the Lakers trade LeBron? So first, let's start with the Los Angeles Lakers. A lot of conversations centered around this team. Of course, the other night, LeBron dropped a cryptic tweet. Everybody trying to figure out what it was. Then we got another update from a very reliable source claiming that there could be some movement around LeBron's name. Now, Rich Paul did a lot of that conversation, so that's the reason why I don't want to dedicate a whole video to that, because it's not true. But there's still a lot of other things going on with the Los Angeles Lakers, a team that has been woefully underperforming so far this season, roughly around a 500 ball club. Defensively, they've been slipping. Offensively, they have been abysmal. And so, of course, a lot of reports have been going on with the Los Angeles Lakers. First one being centered around DeJounte Murray. The Lakers have talked with the Hawks about DeJounte Murray, but Atlanta wants Austin Reeves in that deal. Talks have not moved along because Atlanta's insistent on Reeves. Los Angeles and Atlanta are expected to talk again before the deadline passes about Murray. Bruce Brown, again, has been mentioned in several conversations around LA. And Woj says Lakers players and fans should temper their expectations. Interesting. For the trade deadline, waiting until 3 available first-round picks to trade in the offseason might be their best find for an impact player. Now, I think the ongoing conversation around the Lakers has really centered around their two guards in both D'Lo and Austin Reeves as trade packages, because there has been a lot of conversation with, the backcourt. Obviously, there's a lot of redundancy. And also in the offseason, when you gave D'Angelo Russell that contract, it was supposed to be one that was palatable enough to move off of and go get someone else. Unfortunately, however, it seems as if like some of the candidates or some of the suitors that want to receive those players and potentially give LA some better players in return want a little bit more, especially someone who may have a little bit more promise in Austin Reeves. Reeves is on a really good team-friendly contract and making around $12 to $13 million. So, of course, not only his production very valuable, but getting that type of production that he's providing to a team, roughly averaging around 15 to 17 points, really respectable shooting splits, a quality second or third ball handling option, regardless if he's starting or coming off the bench. Those are all things that you will want at that price point. However, of course, the Lakers know for a fact how valuable he is, and they don't want to move off of him, and more than likely want to move off of D'Angelo Russell. And I think D'Lo over the past month or so of basketball has really increased his value, and I do believe at some point they're probably going to move off of D'Lo. DeJounte Murray, in my opinion, should be at the top of the priority list if the Lakers decide to move in that direction, especially if you want more defense, point of attack, with now Vanderbilt potentially being out for the remainder of the season as he's dealing with a foot injury. Now, another conversation that we have to talk about is what exactly is going out in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is in a very, very, very interesting situation because they have a lot of things going on that just doesn't really make too much sense. They've done a lot of retooling over the past couple of years because of the whole breaking down the Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden situation. Mikal Bridges, they got in that transaction, as well as a lot of these other players. So they've been doing a good job juggling a lot of pieces. But the reality is that when you go look at what they have moving forward, it just doesn't make any sense for them not to hit the restart button. We are talking about a team that is 19 and 28. Wow, I didn't know they were that bad. 19 and 28. The whole Ben Simmons situation really isn't working out for them. And then, more importantly, though, because the contract situations was really, really important here, Mikal Bridges, after this season, only has 2 years left under his deal. Spencer Dinwiddie is going to an expiring contract. DFS is also potentially going to be on an expiring contract next year if he decides to opt out. And Royce O'Neal also on an expiring contract also. The other thing to point out is that Mikal Bridges, 27, Spencer and DFS, 30, Royce O'Neal, 30. These are not players that you rebuild with. They're beyond the age of 25. They should be on contenders. This is not a contending unit. So, of course, you want to make sure you want to restructure and rebuild. A lot of people are talking about what that can look like and what they would get in return for it. Shout out to Nets Frequency, as he believes that Mikal Bridges will bring in draft picks that they lost from the Harden trade, potentially even Jalen Green if he does get moved to Houston. DFS, he believes goes for 2 first-rounders, Royce O'Neal, 4 first-rounder, Nick Claxton, 2 first-rounders, and a young player. And that's something that will definitely bring back a lot of draft capital that was lost in the process of trying to build that super team a couple of years ago. And I do believe it is inevitable. Even if they don't do it now, they definitely are going to have to do it eventually because the financial structure of a lot of those contracts kind of lends itself in that direction. But more importantly, bro, these players are pretty old. They're up there in age. They're not going to be able to contend for a team that's going to rebuild around a younger player anytime soon. And when you're this underwhelming, it's going to be interesting. So if you are a team that's looking for some impact players, some role players, some quality rotation pieces, the Brooklyn Nets are one of those teams that has been underwhelming so far this season. And so they have some quality value on role players that could be given up in the process. Speaking of an underwhelming team, we have the Chicago Bulls. Man, this has been an ongoing situation. So the Bulls are like twofold here. First, we have the two stars in Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. I cannot stress this enough, and the reason why there's been multiple reports over the past month or so about Zach LaVine being interesting in the trade market is because of his contract situation. Zach LaVine, from a financial structure, is not on a contract that is team-friendly. It's ridiculous how much money he's getting paid. So, ninth seed, below 500. They've actually been really good in games in which Zach LaVine has not been available. Kobe White has been balling out of his mind, dog. And in the same process, bro, Zach LaVine, if you want him on your team, you got to pay a hefty fee. $40+ million all the way up to 2027. Put that in context so people who do know, Zach LaVine is in the same ballpark as Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis, more than Zion, more than Ja. He's in the same, he's $5 million away from Dame, $5 million away from Giannis next season, $5 million away from Jimmy Butler. He's in the conversations of getting paid the same as top 10, 15, some even 20 players in the NBA. Is Zach LaVine that type of player? When he's healthy, can certainly argue top 20. I want to be clear about that. But whatever team he goes to, especially if it's a contender, Zach LaVine cannot be the best player on your roster. So if you're willing to trade for Zach LaVine, you have to accept the fact that you're going to be paying $40+ million for a player that's been giving you around 24, 25 points, has been inconsistent with his shooting from time to time, and in this year dealing with injuries. He's been injured. And so I think that's the thing that's really messing up the Chicago Bulls. They were trying to unload him. It's not working out for him because of the financial structure, but he's not even healthy. He's not even playing. So that's a massive problem with Chicago. But also the second star for the Chicago Bulls, DeMar DeRozan, is also in conversations to be moved as well. Not only because we're talking about a team that's looking to blow things up, but more importantly, DeMar DeRozan is on an expiring contract. So he's going to be a lot of cap flexibility for a team that wants him, who's willing to receive him. A veteran scorer right now is averaging over 20 points per game, having a really solid season from a scoring standpoint. Of course, there's a lot of questions about his translation in the postseason, what that looks like. There has to be a very unique team that is built around him for him to be productive. So that's going to be very, very interesting as well. I thought Philly might have been in a conversation. You got to bring in somebody else to kind of alleviate a lot of that pressure off of Joel Embiid. But I don't really know where DeMar DeRozan goes at this point in his career. It's actually going to be interesting beyond his contract what team he goes for. However, big picture here when it comes to Chicago, I find it more interesting to look at some of their role players, which is the second part of the Chicago Bulls kind of blow up and rebuild and retooling situation here. You have Lonzo Ball, who is on a potential expiring contract. I think he's going to take up that next year, though. So if there is a team that is willing to roll the dice on him, what do they get out of that? You have Alex Caruso, who's making less than $10 million. AO, I don't know if they want to keep him, but he's also in the conversation. Andre Drummond on expiring as well. These are players that can go on a team within the next year or two, be very, very pivotal, very valuable role players for a contending team at a very low price. Alex Caruso, one of the better point of attack defenders, making less than $10 million. My goodness, there's so many teams in the NBA that would love to have him. That value is immense. Andre Drummond coming off the bench for a couple of teams, especially if you want to get a little bit more bigger inside, guarding someone like Jokic, guarding someone like Giannis. Only $3 million. That also can be valuable as well. And in my opinion, if you are Chicago, those are the directions that you're probably going to move in first before you find a suitor for Zach LaVine, who's making the ridiculous amount of money he's making. But the reason why I didn't want to make one big video on one big name, because there isn't any, as you all can see. This is a trade market for role players that will help move the needle for teams that are already needle movers, teams that are already contenders, teams that are already competing for a championship, who need that extra one way or another, or teams that may need a little bit more structure, feel like they're missing the piece to take them over the top, or a team that may be out of the playoffs or at the bottom of the playoffs. They get that one piece and they can take them to the next level. Teams that are desperate, especially Los Angeles Lakers, Golden State Warriors, and the teams that are trying to rebuild in some capacity because they had underwhelming seasons. But big names, no big names this year. I think a lot of that's going to happen in the upcoming off seasons, but not at this deadline. But until that happens, we will monitor everything that's going on, the trading deadline, everything that's going on in the upcoming days. I do feel like there's going to be a lot of names that's going to be moved, but just not big ones. And when that does happen, it will be uploaded on this channel. So make sure you go check me out here. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.